everyone, my name is Lizzie and today we'll be talking about 6 ways to back sweeten your brew. So what is back sweetening? Let's say you finished your whole fermentation process, your rum is done and you're about to bottle it, just give it a little taste and it's nasty. Meaning it's not sweet, it's dry, and it's totally not what you want. So instead of throwing it away, try to add a little sweetness at the end just to save your whole time and effort. So there's an option of just sweetening it by the glass. So you pour it in a glass and you add sugar per glass, but let's not talk about that because we're sweetening it by the gallon. So you just do it once. You don't have to pour sugar every time you want to pour a glass. This is really if you want to keep the same taste throughout. So the first way to back sweeten your rum is to add sugar. This could be any type of sugar. It could be brown sugar, white sugar, yellow sugar, and once you add it in the jar, you have 2 potential options. So either number 1, it's going to sweeten it because it's so much sugar and your yeast is just going to be sugar shocked. There's not enough water in the solution and your yeast is stressed and it's not able to eat all the sugar that's introduced. In that case, your wash will become sweeter. However, if the yeast is still out there looking for sugar, there's enough water in the environment is favorable, all the sugar that you're adding will just be converted into alcohol. It's crazy how you can add so much sugar and in the end it's as if you didn't add anything. That's because the yeast is at work and everything that's been added is being converted into alcohol. And the only way of knowing which one of these 2 options will come to fruition is by adding sugar. So you test it and you see if the yeast does nothing, is just overwhelmed with the sugar or sugar shocked, or if it produces more alcohol. However, it's important to note that your yeast has a tolerance to alcohol. So if, let's say, you've produced already 15% of alcohol and you add more sugar, you can't bring that 15% to 20 because your yeast alcohol tolerance is already at the maximum. Actually, I've back sweetened my rum once and I made sure that it's still in the jar with an airlock, because if you put it in a jar that you can drink from, if you put it in a closed jar, that jar may explode if the fermentation process is not completely done, and you don't want that. The second way to back sweeten your rum is to pasteurize. So what is pasteurizing? This means to increase the heat to 80 degrees Celsius and kill off all the yeast. Therefore, when you add sugar, there is no risk that the bottles will explode because there is no more yeast to eat this newly introduced sugar. Some say that pasteurization is at 80 degrees Celsius. Others say it's even lower at 60 degrees Celsius. So let me know in the comments below, have you pasteurized your rum in the past or any of your other alcohol, and what temperature was it at? A third way to increase the sweetness of your alcohol is to add sulfites. Sulfites is something that is present in a lot of alcohol-related products, and this can include elements such as potassium metabisulfite. What sulfites does, it's an antimicrobial, so it gets rid of all the toxic bacteria, and sorbate, and this can include potassium sorbate. It stops the multiplication of extra yeast cells. It doesn't kill it though. However, the yeast will not multiply. The effects are best when both of these are added together, and this is different from pasteurization in the sense that in this case the yeast cells do not multiply. However, in pasteurization they're just dead and they cannot perform anymore. So pasteurization, it's a definite no yeast will be eating sugar, and in this case it's just that no more yeast will be added to the jar by multiplication. A fourth way to back sweeten your wash is to remove the yeast, so to extract the yeast and then to add the sugar. However, this is done with fancy equipment that could be pricey, and if you're looking to save a little buck, this is not the way to go. More specifically, we need a sterile filtration machinery. And this is a very fine filter that separates bacteria. And in order to separate yeast from its liquid, this filter needs to be about 0.43 to 0.45 micron. I looked a bit up on this, and if you don't want to buy a machine for sterile filtration, there are other ways to extract your yeast, and this can include cold crashing. So this basically means that when you have your liquid, you can put the jar in the fridge and wait till the yeast falls to the bottom of the jar and you'll see a thin layer. Once you have that separation, you can extract the clearer part up the top. Extract that liquid out of the jar. And once you have that clear liquid, you can put it in the fridge once again. And then you wait another day. And the next day you should have another thin layer of yeast at the bottom. And then you can once again extract that clear part from the top of the jar to extract the liquid from the yeast. And this whole process takes about a few days. For cold crashing, by the way, the temperature should be from 1 to 4.5 degrees Celsius or 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit in order for the yeast to become dormant. So it shouldn't be put in the freezer because depending on the alcohol percentage that you have, your liquid can actually freeze. A fifth method to increase the sweetness of your wash is forced carbonation. So forced carbonation is basically putting a tube and forcefully injecting CO2 inside the jar. This is high pressure that you're just putting in the jar, and it leads to better taste and it's achieved faster. So better taste is subjective. Let me know if you've done forced carbonation in the past, if you can comment below, if it indeed increases the sweetness of your alcohol. And the sixth way to back sweeten your brew is to add non-fermentable sugars. So this can be, for example, mannitol and xylitol. You can find this on Amazon. It's pricier than regular sugar, obviously. However, since it's non-fermentable, there is no risk of explosion or that the yeast will transform this into alcohol. It's simply just to sweeten your jar. And as for the quantity, it's 1-to-1. So let's say you want to put 300 grams of sugar, you would put the equal amount of non-fermentable sugars. Some non-fermentable sugars are stronger than regular sugar, and depending on the back of the package, you'll be able to see instructions such as using 1 teaspoon of sugar is equivalent to 1/8 of the fermentable sugar. So it's always best to read the label. And once you add the non-fermentable sugars, you can adjust the taste by adding a little bit by little bit, so incrementally until it's the taste that you like. As for the taste, personally, I have not tasted non-fermentable sugar. I'm not sure if this is a sort of Splenda versus regular sugar type of situation. So if you've tasted non-fermentable sugars, just let me know if there's a difference between that and real sugar. What some people do is that they first add the non-fermentable sugar and then they add subsequently regular sugar in order to carbonate out the CO2. So I hope this helps. And sometimes, just to let you know, if you've made a really bad batch and it's not good and you're trying to just put sugar to hide the taste, just make a new batch. I know it's hard to throw things away, but you know if it's a good batch or if it just tastes like trash. And if you found this video valuable, why don't you share it with a friend? Let them know how to sweeten their brew. And you can like this video and subscribe as well. See you in the next one.